So we're learning, and we drop late. We're learning the Sikha from Tafshin Lamed Daled, which is equivalent to 19. Rebbes just starting 1970, end of 1973. It's Shabbos Parshas Noach, Beis Rosh Chodesh Mar Cheshbon, exactly like this year, which is the second day of Rosh Chodesh, and it's Shabbos Noach. Okay, let's go. The Sikha says like this: Yom Shabbos Kodesh Shaboy Korim Parshas Noach. This is the Shabbos Kodesh that we read the parsha of Noach. Shabbos Bereshis. The Rebbe says something that's seemingly quite obvious, that Noach always comes after Shabbos Bereshis. And Shabbos Bereshis is Shebesiyumay Shachodesh Tishrei, is the end of the holiday of the month of the holidays of Tishrei, which also comes following La'achar Simchas Torah, after the holiday of Simchas Torah. And the Rebbe continues, Therefore, the last week, which is Shabbos Bereshis, we always bless the month of Mar Cheshbon. And in Parshas Noach is the Olam Chodesh Mar Cheshbon. Noach always will fall on Mar Cheshbon. So the Rebbe is like this. The layout, maybe not to the exact dates. Noach is always following Bereshis. Bereshis is always the Shabbos we bless the month of Cheshbon, and Noach is always the first Shabbos of Cheshbon. V'akaponim b'Rosh Chodesh Mar Cheshbon, at least if it's not in the week of Cheshbon, it's the Rosh Chodesh of Cheshbon, but it's not in the month of Tishrei at all. Like this year, meaning 1973, and also this year, 2024, Tafshin Pei, also that tomorrow is going to be the second day of Rosh Chodesh. Shaboy Nichal Kol Chodesh Mar Cheshbon. So Rosh Chodesh has in it the entire month of Mar Cheshbon. We know the name Rosh means the head, not just the head in like the first day, but also like the head includes all the energy of the month. So too, the Rosh Chodesh includes all the energy of the month of Cheshbon. Okay, and the Rebbe is like this: that we know that how we establish the months, as it was established by Hillel the prince. This is not Hillel that we know, the Hillel the wise, which was in the times of the Second Temple. This was his great grandson who lived after the destruction, towards the end of the Jewish rule, so to say, the house of the Nasi in Eretz Yisrael at the time. So, Kvish Nikfa de Hillel Nasi, as was established, the calendar that we use today is the calendar that was established by Hillel the prince, that he established how the months are going to be. And that is Al Pi Torah. So we know that everything that is Zmanim, whenever there's times in Torah, that's a Torah way. The Torah decides that Noach has to always be Mar Cheshbon. She Torah Shlema b'Tachas Shlema. So we know the Torah is a complete Torah. Because Torah was given by Hashem and God is complete, so the Torah is complete. So every aspect of Torah is exact. The Rebbe is leading up to the idea that Noach is in Mar Cheshbon is by design, not because that's how it works out technically. The whole prat to prat, every detail of Torah, and so too what Torah establishes is, and here we're talking about the calendar that was established by Hillel the prince. It's all part of God's true Torah. He says, we know in the word emes itself, the word emes, which means in Hebrew truth, as is mentioned, the Rebbe said before, in a talk the Rebbe said on the 6th of Tishrei that year. But the Talmud Yushalmi says, we know that Yushalmi tells us that the word emes is made up of 3 words, Aleph, Mem, Tav. So what does Yushalmi say? Aleph Resh. Aleph is the first word of the alphabet, the alpha base of the Aleph base. Mem Bemtzeisa. Mem is the middle letter. If you add all the double letters, meaning Chaf and long Chaf, Mem and closed Mem, Nun and a long Nun, so Mem is the middle number, and Tav is the end. So we know that the word Emes, which means truth, is taken from the alphabet. In a way, it takes the first word letter, the middle letter, and the last letter. To say Ani Harishon because the idea of truth is that I'm the first and there's nothing else, and therefore it's included in all the letters of the alphabet to say the only truth, there's no truth aside from Hashem. And I'm the first and I'm the last. That's like God is the beginning, but afterwards there's something else. What's the idea? The idea is to say that truth has to be able to, this is an idea of truth. I don't know if the Rebbe is about to quote the famous Hadyagon, that truth has to be true on all sides. So it can't just be that God is true for the beginning of times. But as time goes on, people say, well, that was a truth of once upon a time. But now that truth isn't true anymore for the situation of what we live in today. So that's why the word emes is no. It's the first letter, the last letter, the middle letter. Truth is either truth or it's not truth. If it's truth from the beginning to the end. And that's why truth is a connection to godliness, because godliness is consistent everywhere. As the Rambam writes in the beginning, in the first chapter of Rambam, in Hilchos Yesod Torah, that God is a true God. He is the only one who's true. And there is no truth like God. That's what it means, there's no one else but God. Not only there's nothing else like God, there's no truth out there that is duplicate to God. The absolute entity of truth is godliness. So therefore the Rebbe is saying, what's the idea that we're trying to say over here? Our movement is understood. If Torah says that the parsha of Noach always has to fall out in the month of Mar Cheshbon, means that there's something extremely, absolutely true about this idea. It's not just because technically there's no more space in the month of Tishrei for another parsha. Therefore, it has to be that because it follows Bereshis and there's no more space, so it spills over into Mar Cheshbon. The Rebbe says everything is by design. The fact that Mar Cheshbon is after Tishrei is by design. The fact that Noach is in Mar Cheshbon is by design. The fact that Bereshis is in Tishrei is by design. And it has an internal connection. There's a message there, which is, of course, what the Rebbe is going to talk about now. The main idea is, we're not just talking about an idea. We're talking about an idea of how one learns the Torah. Means the reading of the Torah on a weekly basis is based on this truth that Noach has to be in the month of Cheshvan, and Cheshvan follows Tishrei, and Noach is after Bereshis, etc. That the idea of Torah is not just is a lesson in life. So there's a lesson in life over here. Again, the Rebbe is leading up to that. There's a lesson in life of why the parsha of Noach is in Mar Cheshvan, and why Mar Cheshvan follows Tishrei. Therefore, it's not just a lesson about things, it's a lesson about how a person is supposed to serve Hashem in the world. So, because the whole purpose of creation was for man to serve God in this world. All the heaven and earth and all the cosmos, everything that's been created, the purpose of the creation is so man should serve God in this world, like it says, La'avdo l'shamra. Kamaimer, as it says, turning to page 205, Bereshis. Why does the first word of creation start with Bereshis in the beginning? B'shvil HaTorah, because it's for the Torah. God created the world for the Torah Shnikarashis, because the Torah is called the first. Or B'shvil Yisrael Shnikarashis, and before the Jewish people that are the first of God's interest. And this idea is the way it comes down into the world in action to bring the Torah in to penetrate creation. And that the idea that the world was created for Torah and for Jews has to be revealed within creation. The Rebbe compares this to the idea of the new moon that happens on Rosh Chodesh. This week is Rosh Chodesh again. Today's Rosh Chodesh. Tonight, for those who are already in evening, Friday and Shabbos is Rosh Chodesh. We know that the new moon is in accordance to how the movements of the stars and the sun and the moon. And it's all dependent on how it's being seen from Eretz Yisrael. That's where the witnesses have to see the new moon. That's when, before Hillel, the Nasi, established the calendar, that was the method, was through the witnesses telling us, this is where we saw the new moon. The Rebbe says, even though in other places possibly they see the new moon in a different day because of the differences of where their location is, but the way the moon is established as the new moon, when do we start say this is Rosh Chodesh? Is when the new moon is visual in Eretz Yisrael specifically. Okay, but what does this all mean? The Rebbe is like this: Chodesh Mar Cheshbon, the month of Cheshbon, Sheba miyad la'achar Chodesh Tishrei, that comes after the month of Tishrei, Choluk ligamar mimenu. It's a totally different month. We're not easing into a similar idea. A lot of times when things follow, things evolve. We go from one week to one day to another day, 1 week to another week, one holiday to another holiday, 1 month to another month. Seemingly it should evolve. It's going from one. The Rebbe says that the differences between the month of Cheshvan and the month of Tishrei mamish totally opposite. Why? Ki Chodesh Tishrei hu Chodesh Hashvi. We know Chodesh Tishrei is the 7th month. And the word Shvi'i also in Hebrew means Shu HaMushva VaMasbi'a. It's full and it's satisfying. It's a month that's full of holidays and energy and lessons. We have Rosh Hashanah, we have Yom Kippur, we have Sukkot, Simchat Torah, right? We go from a month full of satisfying holidays. We Reiv Tov L'Chol Yisrael Kol Hashanah, and it's giving blessing, tshuva, all the messages and all the ideas that we live with in the month of Tishrei for the Jewish people, that we satisfy ourselves. It's like a person who goes shopping, and you have for the next 12 months you take from the month of Tishrei. Colossian Teres Baal Shem Tov, like the holy Baal Shem Tov said, "B'negeya libracha shemivarach Kadosh Baruch Hu as chodesh hashvi b'Shabbos mivarach l'fanav." That we know that when we bless the new moon for Tishrei, so the Baal Shem Tov says, "Shebekayach zeh mivarachim Yisrael as hachadashim." That we know that the custom is we do not bless the new moon on Tishrei. We don't do Kiddush HaChodesh on Tishrei. Why? Because God blesses it. But the Baal Shem Tov says God blesses it and empowers us to bless it further. So the fact that last week, Shabbos Bereshis, we blessed the month of Mar Cheshbon is because God blessed the month of Tishrei. So again, we see it's a godly month. Oh, there's an energy in the month from the beginning, from the blessing of the month. Already, it's infused with an energy for not just that month, but for the whole year. And with all the statements that we say when we bless the new moon, right? We say it should be Latova, Levracha, L'chaim, all the things that we say, and that we say with confidence that this month, for the next 11 months, are going to be good months. Where do we get the strength to talk with such confidence, to pray with such confidence for the blessing of the new moon? Is only because God did the same when He blessed the first month of the month of Tishrei. All the blessings that we want to bring down in the new month, whether it's physical, material blessings or spiritual blessings, that come down from Hashem. So how do we assure ourselves that we get these blessings from Hashem? Like it says, like when a person goes out to the field, you have to gather in from your threshing field and from your yekev, from your winery. You're taking both spiritually and physically, and so too, you're taking the month of Tishrei is full of blessings from above. It's like a person's going, like I said, you're going to the yekev, you're going to the winery, you're going to the threshold, you're going to the place where the wheat is to gather enough schayra, enough stuff, enough things that you need for the rest of the year. So that's the month of Tishrei. So the month of Tishrei is a powerful month. It's a month full of energy. It's a month that spills over and energizes the entire year. It's a month that's full with enough content for a person to take and to live with for the whole year. So that's the month of Tishrei. The Rebbes says, but it comes the month of Mar Cheshbon, Chodesh Mar Cheshbon. When it comes to the month of Mar Cheshbon, Mar midlei, it's bitter, it's empty. Why is it empty? Tipin, it's like small little drops. It's the total opposite of a person that has abundance, of satisfaction. And like we've learned many times, that's when it starts avoda. You have to go out the darko. You have to leave the comfort of Tishrei, leave the comfort of the assurance and all the holiness of the month of Tishrei, and go out to the road of life. And things are dripping. It's mar. We have no other month. Mamish, not even Av, is called bitter. Av is called Menachem Av. We spoke about it many times. Menachem Av is Nechama, is a consolation. In the month of Av, we have negative things. Mar Cheshbon doesn't seem to have anything negative. There was no destruction of the temple. There's not even a fast day in Mar Cheshbon. Nevertheless, it's the only month that's called Mar. Mar means bitter. So why? Things are small. You go out. You have to go. Yaakov has to go out of the world of holiness to the world of the mundane. The Rebbe says that the Chassidim used to say, that they already start to call out in Lubavitch that Yaakov goes on his way from Simchas Torah. And the Rebbe is not following up the thought on that. Later, in other years, he does go into this idea. And here the Rebbe is going to talk about this idea that I think the Rebbe is leading into the idea that we've learned many times, that what we know the Jewish people have two names from our father Jacob, right? We have Yaakov, which is Yaakov, Jacob, and we have Yisrael. And of the two names, Yaakov is the lower name. So the Rebbe says that the diak doesn't say Yisrael goes on his way. It says Yaakov goes on his way. And the Rebbe says, Hashem Yaakov, why is the name Yaakov? Why was he called Yaakov? So the Torah tells us and told us. Hashem v'yadei oiches be'ekev. Moira alavoide shi b'chinas ekev. It says because Yaakov was holding on to the hold on, Aaron, holding on to the heel of Esav. And so it's Yaakov's name symbolizes the concept of an avoda that's holding on to the heel, lower things. Yes. Yeah.
You said there's about that there's nothing like bad. I'm not saying the right words, but my question is that this is the story of Noah where he built the ark. They killed off all the earth except for him. So how can you say there's not you, but how could the Rebbe say there's nothing bad?
First of all, the Rebbe didn't say that I added that. The Rebbe just said that the Rebbe quoted the Mar delay 16 is that it's things are slow in the month of Cheshvan. You're right. There was the flood. The flood, according not to all opinions, there's an argument. Rashi brings down different opinions of when we're not exactly sure, but according to the conventional wisdom, is you're right. The month of Tishrei, the 17th month of Tishrei, is when the flood started, but it's not recognized. First of all, it's arguable. You have to argue about the concept of of viewing the flood negative or a cleansing process, which is what Chassidus says. It was a mikvah, it was cleansing. So though the bad happened already, meaning the people behaved bad, the ability to purify the bad started in Mar Cheshbon. So you could say it's a positive. The flood is a positive. It brought about the fixing of the world as opposed to the destruction of the world. So that's one answer. But the second answer is that it's not celebrated as a or remembered as a negative month. It means we don't have a specific day, like in Av, where there's the destruction, or other fast days in Tammuz or Tevet that we remember negative things, and we don't have positive things. We don't have holidays. It's kind of a quiet month, like we would say. So therefore, it goes from a big happening month. It's like a shock, right? You go from a very happening month to mamish shutting down. So the Rebbe says, and also the idea is that Yaakov is going on his way. And he says, Yaakov is holding on to the heel of Esav. So he continues, as you find in the Torah, that why every name is not just by chance. We don't just call names by chance. A name is an insight to the person's service of Hashem. So if Yaakov is the insight of the concept of Eikav, of the heel, which is a lower level of the body, right? Kamoi b'negei le'Ephraim miksha shenikra kain lefi shedarke b'limud Torah hi ba'ofen shayim miksha halachis. It says Ephraim miksha. It's I have to check what that is, but it says why was it? Because the word miksha means hard because of how he learned the laws. So we know that the names are all connected to an avoda, and like Yisrael is Rosh, Li Rosh. That's the head. Yaakov is the heel. It says the name Tishrei, if you move around the letters, is Reishis, right? The same letters Tishrei make Reishis, the beginning. Reishis is also Rosh, head, which is a month full of, like a head is full of energy, which that's connected to the name Yisrael. Yisrael, I said before, is Ki Sharisa. You are a master. Also Rosh, Li Rosh. We go from an avodah, service of God, which is about the head, mamish, like we said before, full of energy, full of insight, full of giving something. When does it mean Yaakov goes on his way? That's really going into the month of Cheshbon. Mar Cheshbon is the total opposite name, the name that's connected to the heel. So we go from the head to the heel. So the Rebbe's point is that we're going mamish. It's like psychologists analyze the effect that it has on people when you go from such a high to such a low could be chas v'shalom damaging. And here we see that the Torah establishes that that's how you have to go. You have to go from Tishrei all the way down to Cheshbon, all the way down to Mar, all the way down to Ekev. So the Rebbe says it would pass this. Simply said, Shavodah shachodesh Tishrei ikri v'inani kedusha. Do we know that what's the main idea of Tishrei? Tishrei is all about holiness. Like it says, Heichel Maseres Me'Tshuva, we know the 10 days of Tshuva, that's from the first day of Tishrei. Shalem Nemr, like it says, Dirshu Hashem B'himatzu. Seek out God when he's found, Karu B'yesekarv, call out to him when he's close. Shizeu Inyan Shal Tzivuyu Bakasha. God is saying, commanding you to seek him out, and he's pleading with you to seek him out. And also empowering you to seek him out. And if God commands us, pleads with us, empowers us to seek out Hashem, so surely we've done it. Even if you say, if maybe a little bit of the time you have been working on other things, you put that to the side to go seek out Hashem. You do it like it's known. Like we know that that's when the luminary is close to the spark. That the fact that the luminary is close to the spark doesn't just mean that there's a closeness in distance. It elevates the spark. The spark becomes a totally different spark. So the month of Tishrei again is all about this abundance of holiness. And after the 10 days of Tshuva, meaning from Rosh Hashanah till Yom Kippur, so the first 10 days of 30, so 1/3 of the month already is the 10 days of Tshuva. The prophet says these are days that God is close, the luminary is close to the spark. And then comes Dal de Yamim, the 4 days between Yom Kippur and Sukkot, which are, the Torah says those 4 days are the 4 names of Hashem, 4 letters of Hashem's name. And then the Torah testifies, Shekol Yisrael Asukim b'mitzvahs, people are mamish full of doing mitzvahs. One person is preoccupied in building their sukkah, the next person is preoccupied in finding their lulav, or the women and whoever is involved in the cooking. This is 4 days we have between Yom Kippur and Sukkot. The Torah says that the reason why that we take the first day of Sukkot is called the first day. It's the first day for God counting sins, because you didn't have time to sin. 10 days you were busy with God, 4 days you're busy with the sukkah and the lulav. So we have already 14 days that a person is totally preoccupied with holiness. That's why the 15th of the month is called the first day. That's when God starts counting the sins. No one had time to sin until then, right? So if a person sits down for a moment to catch their breath, that's not a sin. We already have 15 days, and that continues. All of them is the idea of Tishrei. Reish is the beginning. I think the Rebbe quotes this from the Shach, no? The Rebbe quotes it from the Alter Rebbe in the Shulchan Aruch. I think it's a Shach. That he says, if someone were to write a letter to a friend, then the person writes, this is the month of Tishrei. And we haven't said even Tachna until the end of the month. Even if it follows after Simchas Torah. It's a month that's full of holidays. So again, the entire month of Tishrei is elevated. Okay, so we know what we're leaving, right? Tonight, for those who are still in Tishrei, in your time clock, I think it's already a bit dark. So it's already, we're into the month of getting into the end of the month of Tishrei. Yes, Aaron.
I just wanted to ask, so you say there's no holiday, but how does Shabbat fit in? Because I feel that, we always have the weekly holiday of Shabbat, and how does that fit in?
Shabbos is Mekachev V'Kaima. Shabbos is, there's Moya Dim L'Simcha, there's times of happiness. Shabbos is not called Moedim L'Simcha, times of happiness. Shabbos is Shabbos. So Shabbos is part of the cycle of creation. We're talking about unique days within the framework outside the 6 days of the week, 7 days of the week. Okay. And the Rebbe says, when it comes to the month of Cheshvan, it's all mainly weekly. But that's not only unique to Cheshvan. All the rest of the months are not like Tishrei. Of all the months, like I said before, in Mar Cheshbon, we see the huge spectrum, the jump from Tishrei all the way to a month like Cheshvan. The other months, the Rebbe says another point, that the other months is after Cheshvan. Cheshvan is the first. So already we know it's not so much a shock anymore for us in the month of Teves and Kislev and other months that we're not in Tishrei, because already it's a person got used to it. The extreme is Shabbos Noach. That's what the Rebbe is getting to. This is the famous idea the Rebbe says. So what do we tell a person who's leaving the comfort and security of the month of Tishrei and going into the unknown, to the mundane of the month of Cheshvan? This we tell the person, Al Tirav Yaakov, don't be scared, my servant Jacob, specifically Jacob. We're talking to Jacob, like we said, Yaakov Halachadarkai, the lower name of the Jewish people, the name that is connected to the Akev, to the heel. So a person may feel fearful. How can I go out from the security of the holiness of Tishrei, the communal aspect of it? I was with Shul every 2 days. I was invited to people's homes. We had meals, we had sudas, we had farbrengens, we had Simchas Torah. All of a sudden, things go quiet. A lot of. I can't say it hasn't been heard. The idea said, I cooked the whole month of Tishrei. I don't have guests for the next 5 weeks. So it affects everyone. It's a trickle effect. So we say, don't be scared, my servant Jacob. Why? When it comes to Shabbos, But we know that Shabbos is like Aaron pointed out, is a day that blesses the whole week. So Mivar Rabbeinu Zaken, the Alter Rebbe explains in the Kutei Torah Balak that he says the famous idea. We've learned this before. Why is it the custom that on Saturday night, Motzei Shabbos, the custom by a lot of Jews is that one of the Zemirot, one of the songs we sing in the Suda of the Malava Malka, where we're accompanying the king, is the song of Al Tira Avdi Yaakov. Don't be scared, my servant Yaakov. Why do we sing that song on Motzei Shabbos after Shabbos? It comes because in the day of Shabbos, we're elevated, like Aaron pointed out, we're elevated to Yisrael. It's a little Tishrei within the week. We get elevated to a higher level where Yisrael. Shabbos comes Shabbos, at the end of Shabbos. We're no longer Yisrael. We go back and we open up our phones and we open up our emails and we open up our mail and we're going back to the world of Yaakov, the mundane. Yaakov Avdi, we have to go down to the servant Jacob. Why is it servant? Yaakov Avdi? Because we as a servant we go into the week. It means we have to go in there we're not going there because we want to go there. A servant does what they're told, and Hashem wants us to go out to the world. So we're a servant of Yaakov. The 6 days that are following Shabbos, the var birurim bibiyah, and our job is the avoda. The eved has to go out there to refine, and by refining, you have to engage. You have to engage in mundane things. So a person may be scared. I don't want to go out to this week. I want to stay in Shabbos. Therefore, we say to the person, Al tirav Yaakov, don't be scared. To go down to the world. And by singing that and saying that, it strengthens the person, empowers the person to go into, he or she, to go into the week. That's why the whole month of Tishrei is like a Motzei Shabbos. On the end of Tishrei, that's full of and giving and satisfying and providing for the whole year. On all the months of the year. When a person goes out and leaves the month of Tishrei and goes into the month of Mar Cheshbon, with its the extremes change. And Yaakov has to go out on his way, right? Yaakov leaves the comfort of his home of Yitzchak and Rivka and goes to the road and goes further into the road, like we spoke about in the Shir. You don't have to be scared. But the Rebbe explains, what is this idea that we tell ourselves? Right? Actually, who are we telling it to? We're telling it to ourselves. We're empowering ourselves to go into the week. So what is the Rebbe says to be more specific? What does it mean, al tira, don't be scared? So the Rebbe says that if God is watching over all of us, right? And specifically as Chasidim, we know the teaching of the holy Baal Shem Tov. As my father explained, how God watches specifically over all aspects of creation. If a leaf moves from point A to point B through a wind or another way, something can knock the leaf. Means that the Baal Shem Tov teaches that when a leaf is in point A, it moves to point B, it's by design. But the question is, how does it move? There's many ways it can move. Someone can knock it, a squirrel could come, and a wind could come. The Baal Shem Tov says even that's by design, the method of how it moves. So if a person believes that, we know everything is mamish, being watched by Hashem and guided by Hashem. So that's first al tira, don't be scared. Don't be scared because God is there, but He's watching you. What's avdi? Lai stam eved, we're not just any servant. Avdi shakadish baruch Hu. God's speaking, al tira avdi Yaakov. God is saying, avdi, you're my servant. You're not anyone's servant. Bari eved melech melech. And therefore, when the rule is, the Torah says, that the halacha says, that the servant of a king is a king. If you represent the king, you have to represent the king in a way that you're the king. That's how it has to come off. The message has to be that you're the king. You're coming with the message of the king. So therefore, he says, Eved Melech. The Rebbe says, you're Avdi. You're my servant. You're God's servant. So you're Eved Melech Melech. You're like the king. You have all the qualities and the availabilities of the king. We know that's by even by the servant of a king. If someone comes and says, who you represent? I'm the messenger of such and such king. He gets covered. She gets respect. You're representing the office of the king. So if that's by a regular king, when a person realizes, I'm not just an Eved, I'm a servant, I'm God's servant. And if God's the king, I'm the servant of the king, I'm a king. So that's Altira Avdi. What's Yaakov? Although we say that Yaakov is the heel, is the lower part of the names of the Jewish people. What is the first? Actually, the word Yaakov is Yud Akev, right? The actual word that symbolizes the heel is only 3 letters of the name, which is Akev. So what's the first letter? What's the Yud? Kidua, the Rebbe says, Bin Rosh Tevis, he Ois Yud, and the Rebbe, we say that the most empowering letter of a word is the first word. We know there's the concept of Rashi Tevis and Saifei Tevis. There's either the first letters that symbolizes something, the last letter symbolizes something, like we have Mila and other things. So here we say Yud Kei Vav Kei or Mila. We do that in Elul. Anil Dividei Dili is Elul. The Saifei Tevis is Yud, is 40 days of Elul and Tishrei, 10 days of Tishrei. So we know there's the concept, but the main letter is the first letter, the Rashi Tevis. And what is the Rashi Tevis what is the first letter of the word Yaakov? Is not the part that deals with the heel. It's the letter Yud. And what's the symbol? What's the message of the letter Yud? It's God's first letter. So your person has to know that first you're not scared because God is watching you. And if he's watching a leaf and deciding exactly how that leaf goes from point A to point B by design, not just that it moves, but how it moves, surely he's watching over you. And everything about your life is being monitored, and it's by design. So you don't have to be scared. Then you have to know that you're Avdi, you're not just a servant, you're God's servant. And Eved Melech, the servant of the king, is a king. Excuse me. On top of that, you have to remember that even the name that talks about Yaakov, the first letter of the word Yaakov is Yud, and that's the first letter of Hashem's name. God is giving you the first letter of his name to empower the message of Eikav, of Yaakov. What is the symbol of the first letter? The first letter is God's wisdom. What the Alter Rebbe says in Tanya, have a Magid in the name of his teacher. The Holy Magidim is rich. Shahashana, that the Rebbe says that year, meaning the year of Tafshin Lamadad, 1973-74, is Masayim Shana Listalkusei, was 200 years from his passing. So we're talking about, wow, it's amazing just to know that we're now, for those who are not in the know, and I'm included in that, we're now celebrating 250 years of the passing of the Holy Magid, because Tafshin Lamadad is, of course, we're 51 years, because Tafshin Lamadad is 51 years. Okay. So he says, She'inyin madregas ha'chachma, hu she'ein seif baruch hu echad ha'emes, shehu levadei hu ve'en zulasei. That what is the level of Chachma? That's the letter of Yud. It symbolizes the infinite of Hashem. That's the emes, the truth of God. And the idea is that the Hashem's letter, hold on, Aaron, the Hashem's letter Yud, that is the truth of God, the infinite of God, the Chachma of God, is installed in the person's name, Yaakov, that even though you feel like you're Yaakov and you're a heel and you're dealing with heel issues, nevertheless, you're empowered by the first letter of Hashem's name. Yes, Aaron.
Just explain the Holy Magid, because I don't know what it is.
Say that again?
Totally. The Holy Magid. You said we're 250 years plus.
The Holy Magid is not a concept, he's a person. The Magid means the preacher. He was the student of the Baal Shem Tov, and he was the successor of the Baal Shem Tov. The Alter Rebbe was a student of the Magid. Dov Ber of Mizrich, his name was. He's buried in Anapoli, Russia, Ukraine area. He was the main student of the successor of the Baal Shem Tov, and he took over the leadership of Hasidim. The Baal Shem Tov is the founder of Hasidus. His successor was the Holy Magid, Dov Ber Mizrich. Magid again means the preacher, and one of his students was the Alter Rebbe, was the Baal Tanya. Chabad is all Hasidus comes pretty much, not all, but 90% Hasidus comes from the students of the Magid.
Nice.
From the word lahagid, to tell over. Yes, Barbara?
There's a really good book that I'm reading right now, which is a biography of Rabbi Zalman that I'm listening to through audible.com, and it details all this history. It's very, very interesting. I didn't realize what a hard time Hasidism had in the very beginning. That was shocking.
Yeah, all beginnings are difficult. Okay, so he says like this. Therefore, the Rebbe says that when a person goes, Yaakov goes on his way. V'oifin devayisa Yaakov Raglov, that he picks up his feet, like Rashi says, Mishin Isbasir B'Sura Toiva Shuvtach B'Shmira. When Yaakov was you have to people have to sometimes open the Chumash. The pasuk Yaakov Halachadarka, he said it said 22 years after the first pasuk. The first pasuk is Vayisa Yaakov Es Raglov. That pasuk is said when Yaakov is on his way to Lavan, and he has the dream, and God promises him he will protect him and be with him, and then he says Va'evan Azos, he dedicates the stone and God is going to be my Elikim. The promises that Yaakov makes to God for the assurance that God's going to give him that he will be with him. So then it says Vayisi Yaakov Raglov. It says that the pasuk continues that after that whole incident, that encounter, Yaakov picks up his feet and continues on to his way to go to his uncle Lavan. So Rashi says, what's the word Vayisi Yaakov Raglov? Like he jumped up on his feet. When he heard the good news, Shehuftach b'shmir, that God promised. The word huftacha means huftach. He's been protected. He's been promised. B'shmir, that God's going to watch him. So nasa liboy esragla v'nasa kalalechas. He became his heart and his feet, everything became lighter. He wasn't schlepping. When a person schleps, because you're carrying not just your physical weight, but all your mental weight and your anxiety, so it becomes heavy step. When Yaakov heard it's going to be good, God's going to be with you. God didn't say it's going to be easy, but it's going to be good. And because of that, he jumped up and he was lighthearted and light-footed. And with that assurance and that attitude, he went with strength to fight and to be successful in fighting the forces of evil, which is why Yaakov had to go there, was to bring the sparks. We know the Rebbes says in other talks that Yaakov came back with almost enough sparks to bring Mashiach. So much so that Yaakov thought the Mashiach had to come then, because Yaakov thought he did all the work already. And he says only he was left as pachim ketanim, small little vessels. He left a few small things. But the main avoda was done in the 22 years that Yaakov went to Lavan. So that was a very instrumental, very important time of the Jewish people's history. And he was able to get rid of or overcome all the obstacles that are trying to fight the Kedusha holiness. Heichel from Hakel Zara Asher B'Kirbecha. The Rebbe says not just outside forces, but the ungodly, the foreign God that's within you. There's El Zar, the Zar means foreign. Kel is God. The ungodly, the things that you designate as God in your life. Asher B'Kirbecha, that's within you. He fought. The Rebbe is alluding to not just Yaakov, but all Yaakov, the descendants, in fighting the war from within as well. And if a person is able to fulfill the kavanah, the intention, and the bottom line, what God wants, to be a resting place for him in this world. Like Yaakov walked light-footed, to break all boundaries. And therefore, the Yaakov was the Rebbe says that this is the message that we go into of when we leave Cheshbon and we go into the month of Tishrei. We have a few minutes. I want to do one more paragraph. The Rebbe is like this: Sif Dalet, page 208. This idea that we said that there's a difference between Tishrei, which is this full month, and Cheshvan, kind of a downer month, is shaykh l'avodah kol echad me'echad Yisrael. This is not just applying to Yaakov, it's not just applying to an idea, but every person has to find their service in this transition. Mudgesh yisrael etzel sug miyuchad k'moy klosin in the mamlechas koinim sheshaykh omnam l'chol bnei Yisrael k'vish nemer b'akdomas l'matan Torah v'atem tili mamlechas koinim. That the Rebbe says this is connected specifically to the kingdom of priests, and like it says, all the Jewish people are kingdom of priests. All Jews are like priests. This idea that there's a difference between Tishrei and Cheshvan and the transition is specifically for those who are the descendants of Aaron, that are actually priests. Aaron, that God separated Aaron, that God separated the descendant Aaron and his descendants to be separate for therefore they have special commandments that others don't have. So what's this have to do with the transition of Tishrei to Cheshvan? The Rebbe says, where do we find like I said before, who suffers the most? The suffering the most is the person who doesn't get an invitation to eat by someone's house for the next 5 weeks because no one wants to cook. We cooked the whole Yom Tov, and there's legitimacy to taking a break. So the Rebbe says, where do we see the biggest difference? When it comes to orchim, to the guests. Behegdim. You always have to start with recognizing the host. The Rebbe says he's recognizing all those people who hosted people over the Chag. The Rebbe always talked about this idea in Cheshbon, the people who hosted people. So the Rebbe says, like it says, that greatness we know from Avram Avinu, our father Avram, that hosting guests is even greater than welcoming Hashem. Like Avram chose to have guests and to have a conversation with God. But in order for someone to be a host and to have the mitzvah of having guests, there's a condition. The Rebbe is looking at the flip side. Like Avram was depressed because there was no guest. So when a person is in the month of Tishrei, and there's a lot of guests that come to the Rebbe or come out to Yerushalayim, or the people are available to be guests. So the hosts are excited; they have who to host. But the condition is you need guests. You need people to leave their home. If everyone's in their home, there's no guest. They have to be the people that are ready to leave their home. They go to their unfamiliar place or not their home. And then you could host them. But if everyone is in their home, you have no one to host. The Rebbe says that's what's so unique about the guests that come here. It means the Rebbe is talking about New York. A lot of guests would come to the Rebbe for Yom Tov. That year, 1974, was a year of 73-74, was a Shnas Hakel where more people came to the Rebbe. By definition, Hakel's to gather. One of the conditions of gathering something is you have to be separate, right? You can't gather in people that are standing together. Everyone's here. Is everyone here? Everyone's here, so no one to gather. So one of the conditions is first you have to be spread out, and then you gather in. So the Rebbe says that first people have to be spread out, and then they could gather together. Therefore, the Rebbe says the bottom line is where do the guests see the difference between Tishrei and Cheshvan? When it comes to the month of Tishrei, the guests are also happy because comes the month of Tishrei, they know that they're going to be hosted by people and they're going to have food and they're going to have where to sleep, they're going to have what to eat and what to drink without having any extra stress or daigus or toiling or anxiety. Not only that, even if they wanted to be busy doing work, because they're guests and they're not home, you can't work like you used to work. You're not in your workplace. So they're totally dependent. They're totally kind of in a different environment when you're a guest, when you're not home, when you're not in your business work. So as long as they were guests out of their home until after Simchas Torah. So they're even more than the people who live let's say, at home. If someone lives at home, as soon as Yom Tov is over, you can go to work. But the people who are guests, until they leave their situation, means they leave being the guest, they leave the place where they've gone to, and they go back home, they're not going to be really back into the workplace. For a guest, the Rebbe says on one side, from the guest's perspective, it's extremely challenging to go from Tishrei to Cheshbon, from a month where you were taken care of, where you had your food taken care of, your sleeping taken care of, you didn't have to work, you didn't have to worry, you took a month off. So then all of a sudden they go home and they're back to the reality. So for them it's a bigger jump to go from Tishrei to Cheshvan. They literally have to go on the road back home. They have to go back to where they came from. To their houses, to their jobs. Therefore the Rebbe says, specifically the guests that were Baruch Hashem being taken care of the whole time throughout Tishrei. The Rebbe says for them, specifically for a person who has to really go back to your reality, so to say, the Rebbe says, they shouldn't be overwhelmed. by going back from Yerushalayim, from New York, from wherever they were at, from their in-laws, from their parents. They have to know that just like Yaakov was light on his foot, so too you could be light on your feet to go back. The Rebbe was talking to the people that are going back home, and maybe they were feeling the anxiety of the reality that they're heading back to. That you have to know that you also got the Besura. You also have the message from God that says, I'm there with you. You don't have to be scared. You're the Eved Melech, like we said. And everyone should be able to pass on good messages to the Rebbe. Mikan Nisham, from here to where you're going. Whoever goes back home to their places should come back with good tidings, good news, the Divrei Torah, etc. And when you come back there, you should send back good news to the Rebbe in a happy way. That breaks all the boundaries, and breaks all the obstacles. That it says the Peretz should break through, which is the name of Peretz is Mashiach, Vekarav Mamish, speedily in our time. All right, everyone, a good Shabbos and good Chodesh. Hopefully, this empowers us for a powerful Shabbos and a powerful week. Yes, Aaron.
You gave us all the rules that the invitee, the one inviting guest, they have to cook, they have to clean, they have to provide. What does the guest have to do besides just enjoy?
No, that's why he's saying it, because the guests are enjoying. So the guests, for them, it's a big downer, because for home month we were taken care of. So for them, all of a sudden it's like a reality change. You have to go back home. You have to cook your own food. You have to work for your own food. So the Rebbe is saying that specifically he's encouraging the guests that they should have strength. I'm saying also is for the hosts. The Rebbe first was recognizing the hosts for all the efforts that they've done and the ability they had and the schus they had, the merit they had to be hosts. It's a big mitzvah. But also, so for them also, it's a downer. They're not going to be able to host anymore. And I think maybe the in between messages is that we shouldn't fall, even though it's okay to feel that way, that we feel exhausted from hosting. That maybe one should be even more specific and more emphasized this week, Shabbos Noach, to have an extra guest in your home to show that you're not going to go into that downer, and maybe someone who needs a meal, who feels like he's uncomfortable or she's uncomfortable, to ask after a whole month of Tishrei, to encourage people to come to your homes and to continue with the energy of Tishrei into the month of Cheshbon. That's just an idea that I was thinking of. Laila Tov, everyone. Shabbos and
Thank you, Rabbi. Good Shabbos, everybody.
You wanted to ask something, Barbara?
No, I was just saying thank you and good Shabbos to everybody.
Take care. Thank you very much for joining, everyone. Bye.